Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopijana Balaba Giri Baradhari Jaya Gopijana Balaba Giri Baradhari Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Bonachari Yamuna Tira Bonachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Balaba Giri Varadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Balaba Giri Varadhari Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Bonachari Yamuna Tira Bonachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada. Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Stotara Shata Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Stotara Shata Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Chekaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinatha Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Shri Shri Vrindavan Dhama Ki Jai. Shri Shri Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Shri Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Shri Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Shama Veda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Narayanam Naraskrityam Naram Chaivam Narotamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudidayat Nasta Parayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shlokir Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 16th verse, 16th chapter, 17th verse, is that correct? Brahmanyasya Param Daivam Brahmanaha Kilya Te Prabhu Vipranam Devadevanam Bhagavan Atma Daivatam Brahmanyasya Param Daivam Brahmana Kilya Te Prabhu Vipranam Devadevanam Bhagavan Atma Devatam Brahmanyasya Param Daivam Brahmana Kilate Prabhu Vipramanam Devadevanam Bhagavan Atma Devatam Brahmanyasya Param Daivam Brahmana Kilate Prabhu Vipranam Devadevanam Bhagavan Atma Daivatam Brahmanasya Param Daivam Brahmana Kilate Prabhu Pranam Devadevanam Bhagavan Atma Daivatam Brahmanasya Param Daivam Brahmana Kilate Prabhu Vipranam Devadevanam Bhagavan Atma Daivatam Brahmanyasya Param Daivam Brahmana Kilate Prabhu Vipranam Devadevatam Bhagavan Atma Daivatam Brahmanasya Param Daivam Brahmana Kilate Prabhu Vipranam Devadevanam Bhagavan Atma Daivatam. Ladies? Brahmanasya Param Daivam Brahmanam Kilate Prabhu Vipranam Devadevanam Bhagavan Atma Daivatam Brahmanyasya Param Daivam Brahmana Kilate Prabhu Vipranam Devadevanam Bhagavan Atmadaivatam Brahmanyasya of the Supreme Director of the Brahminical culture, Param, the highest, Daivam, position, Brahmanaha, the Brahmins, Kila, for the teaching of others, Te, your, Prabho, O Lord, Vipranam, of the Brahmanas, Devadevanam, to be worshipped by the demigods, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Atma, the Self, Daivatam, worshipable deities. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. O Lord, you are the Supreme Director of the Brahminical culture. Your considering the Brahmins to be in the highest position is your example for teaching others. Actually, you are the supreme worshipable deity, not only for the gods, but for the Brahmins also. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In the Brahma Samhita, it is clearly stated that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of all causes. There are undoubtedly many demigods, the chiefs of whom are Brahma and Shiva. Lord Vishnu is the Lord of Brahma and Shiva, not to speak of the Brahmins in the material world. As mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Lord is very favorable towards all activities performed according to Brahminical culture, for the qualities of control of the senses and mind, cleanliness, forbearance, faith in Scripture, and practice and theoretical knowledge. The Lord is the supersoul of everyone. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that the Lord is the source of all emanations. Thus, he is the source of Brahma and Shiva. The verse again, O Lord, you are the Supreme Director of the Brahminical culture. Your considering the Brahmanas to be in the highest position is your example for teaching others. Actually, you are the supreme worshipable deity, not only for the gods, but for the Brahmins also. Om Agyanati Mirandasya Ganananjana Salakaya Chaksur Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Caitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamayam Darati Svaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatu Shri Jatapara Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha. In these verses by the Kumaras, they have exhibited a form of anger by cursing the faultless Jaya and Vijaya, the doorkeepers. In one sense, as Prabhupada mentions, the Jaya and Vijaya were not in the Vaikuntha. They were the doorkeepers of Vaikuntha. So in a sense, their leaving could be justified because nobody actually can leave Vaikuntha. But Prabhupada states that the desire to fight is even there in Krishna. And that's one of the things about the Supreme Lord that is unknown to most people, that God can become angry. That anger is actually one of the rasas, although it's an indirect rasa, of relating with Krishna. So even people like Ravana and Hiranyakashipu, they were actually situated as doorkeepers of the Vaikuntha, and they returned very shortly. It's mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita that ordinarily when people have to go to the material world to fight with Krishna, they have to take 7 births as devotees. But they could take 3 births as Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu, Kumbhakarna, and Ravana, and Shishupala and Dantravakya to return more quickly to the Vaikuntha world. So in this sense, they chose to be demons, very powerful demons, of course, because they were originally very Krishna conscious, and the Kumaras felt very guilty that they had become angry and had cursed these two, what Prabhupada calls faultless people, because the doorkeepers were very faultless. But in a sense, it was all Krishna's arrangement. It's described that Krishna arranges things in ways that are sometimes inscrutable, sometimes ununderstandable. Sometimes he puts his devotees into difficulty, like the Pandavas were almost burned alive in the house of Shalak, and Haridas Thakur was beaten, and there were many instances of people who were inimical to Krishna, who attained salvation. And even Putana was given a position as Krishna's mother in the spiritual world, even though her desire was to kill Krishna. She was going to poison him to death, but even she was given liberation. So whatever Krishna does, whether it is out of anger or out of love, it's all good. This is a little difficult to understand, but actually it's true. Sometimes Krishna's desire to fight. So in order to assuage his desire to fight, sometimes he has to send people to the material world, because in the spiritual world there's nobody to fight with. There are no demons in the spiritual world. In the material world, there are many demons, and Jagai and Madai were typical of the demons. And when Lord Chaitanya and Haridas Thakur were threatening them, and Lord Chaitanya came to the spot to kill them, they said, well, if you kill Haridas Thakur and his partner who came to kill them, Lord Nityananda, they were temporarily partners to relieve the world of sin. They told Lord Chaitanya that if you kill these people, you have to kill almost everyone in Kali Yuga, because everyone manifests these qualities of wanting sinful activities, and they're very openly demonstrating them in various places, like Jagai and Madai were exploiting young girls in the water. So Krishna sometimes has to come to the material world to exercise his fighting tendency. This is described as mock fighting. Sometimes a father and son seem to have a fight, but it's all a play. It's all a drama. In a sense, it's like a drama. In a sense, it doesn't happen for reality. When there's a drama or a play, sometimes a person plays the part of a demon or a very sinful person. But after the play is over, that person returns to his normal, original position, and it's not a real fact. So this fighting of Krishna, in a sense, is like a drama. He does it because he has to do it, because dramas are very important. They have to be exercised. They have to be enacted for the pleasure of the audience. But Krishna has to do it too. And if it weren't for Krishna having this desire to fight, there wouldn't be anything fighting in the world. So in a sense, that he creates through Lord Brahma and others people who are of demonic quality, especially in this age of Kali. So it's a very difficult thing to understand how demonic people can exist in a kingdom, in a world that was originally Krishna conscious, but it does happen. So this arrangement by Krishna is exceptional. It doesn't happen all the time. Ordinarily, when Krishna comes, he does come to the material world to gratify his devotees, but he also comes to Paritranaya Sadhunam Vinachaya Traduskritam, to annihilate the miscreants. So he has a twofold purpose, but his main purpose is to support the devotee devotional attitude towards him. He's and sometimes he is even called Tri Yuga, because in the former yugas, Satya Yuga, Treta, and Dvarpa, he manifested. He was a Purusha incarnation, or as it's mentioned, he's manifested deity, whereas when he comes in Kali Yuga as Lord Chaitanya, he is unmanifested. So he even though he's Krishna himself, he plays the part of a devotee in the Kali Yuga, and so this is all part of Krishna's mysterious pastime. Sometimes he's coming in his original form, and sometimes he's coming as a devotee. And in the incarnation of Lord Chaitanya, he showed the people that one has to be very devoted to Krishna. He became almost mad. Not almost, but he appeared to be completely mad, in love with Krishna. That's the perfection of devotional service, that one becomes completely mad after Krishna. So this is Krishna's arrangement, Krishna's plan and Krishna's arrangement. Even though the Kumaras didn't completely understand everything, actually Krishna cannot be completely understood by anyone, including the Kumaras, who are very highly elevated Brahmins and have their own sampradaya and have maintained celibacy throughout centuries and lifetimes. They were mystified by the fact that they could become a little angry, and they repented. They asked Krishna to forgive them for their temporary lack of spiritual consciousness. So even people who are very elevated, like Krishna and the Brahmins, like Kumaras and Bilba Mangal Thakur and other people, were very fond of Krishna, and sometimes they manifested characteristics that were inevitable. And sometimes Krishna is called Triyuga for that reason, that he comes in the Satyatreta and Dwapara Yugas as a Purusha incarnation, but in Kali Yuga he doesn't manifest that quality. So that fighting is, in a sense, it's impersonalist. And impersonalists who become personalists are very much glorified in the matter of Krishna glorifying. The whole Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Sukadeva Goswami, not spoken by, but inaugurated. Vyasadeva is considered not only the author, but the arranger, the proprietor. So the whole Bhagavad Gita comes to us through someone who converted from impersonalism to personalism, namely Sukadeva Goswami. And Bilba Mangal Thakur and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya also started their devotional path by being impersonalists. They had impersonalist gurus, and they were convinced impersonalists. So the debate between personalism and impersonalism has been going on for literally centuries. And it wasn't until Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhaktisiddhanta and Srila Prabhupada engaged the impersonalists by condemning them, philosophically, of course, and showing that the Vaishnavas weren't people who were just sentimental and inventing something new, but it was actually something very old. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati preached this very strongly. And he and Bhaktivinoda, his father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, were in a sense, were the two people who took arms against directly against the impersonalists. And they especially Bhaktisiddhanta, his writing is very, very erudite, and he wanted this was before 1947, before India became independent. He wanted the British rulers to understand that Vaishnavism was a force to be reckoned with, that it could have some very sophisticated philosophy, some very ununderstandable words. I mean, when Prabhupada wrote assembled the Brahma Samhita with purports by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati in English, which are very difficult to read. I'm a bit of a writer myself, and I had to have a dictionary at hand when reading that book, because Bhaktisiddhanta's English writing is very sophisticated. And he had the ability to read an entire dictionary and memorize the whole thing. He literally memorized a dictionary and an encyclopedia. So he was sometimes known as the walking encyclopedia. He had that kind of intelligence. So Prabhupada, even though he refers to him as his Guru Maharaj, only presented one book, the Brahma Samhita, with the English purports by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And it wasn't until 1976 that Prabhupada started to present the Caitanya Caritamrita, which is probably, in a sense, one of the most sophisticated philosophical works known to the world. When I was in England, I saw a 3 by 5 inch, I don't know what that is in centimeters, card on the bulletin board of a university that was the School of Oriental and African Studies, and on it said that Jiva Goswami was the greatest philosopher in the world. Unfortunately, I didn't have a camera. I would have taken a picture of it, but I remember it very clearly. It was a card with that saying on it, that Jiva Goswami was the greatest philosopher in the world. Greater than Socrates, it implied he was greater than Socrates, he was greater than Aristotle, he was the greatest philosopher. And Prabhupada mentions it too, that he was a great philosopher. And he even said very difficult things to understand. One of the offenses he wrote about was to not give up ordinary dealings. The offense was to think that ordinary dealings should not be dealt with. That was what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said. So even though the Kumaras started out as impersonalists, they became great personalists, and they became very. Prabhupada quotes the impersonalists Sarvabhauma and Sukadeva Goswami and others, Bilba Mangal Thakur. How when they became Vaishnavas, they became very great Vaishnavas, not just ordinary Vaishnavas. And Prabhupada has said that to think that Scripture alone is the law is only partial. That we know that Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu is a 3-point check on everything. So the words of the Mahajans, or the 12 Mahajans, who are very important. Swayambhur Mahajans is one of them, and Vyasa is one of them, and Vyasadeva is one of them. That's very important to hear what they say, because scriptures sometimes seem to contradict each other. They sometimes seem to say things which are controversial or incorrect. But if we check with the sadhus who are present in this world and who have given us their wise words in the past, and also we can check with our own Guru Maharaj, our Diksha Guru. Then these so-called contradictory things become resolved. So, one thing that's very difficult to understand is how the material world always exists, even though it's not nearly as large as the spiritual world. It's only 1/4 in size. But Lord Brahma creates even that, because people, animals and insects and birds that are all committing what we would call sinful activities are necessary for society, just like prisons. Prisons have to exist, even though they're not very pleasant places, because they exist for the protection of society. The miscreants and the criminals who populate these prisons are there because because the ordinary citizens are protected from them. They can't exercise their nefarious activities while they're incarcerated. So those things are also produced by Krishna, by Lord Brahma, who was acting under Krishna's assertion and is beyond his not beyond, but he had a lot of latitude. Prabhupada said that we should study and talk and discuss for years on end the concepts of unity and diversity. It's not a simple thing. It can be discussed, just like the sages of Naimisharanya. Thousands of years, they were very learned people, but it took them thousands of years to hear and to ascertain the truth of what was being said in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, in one sense, the nonviolence that we encounter today is false, because there's no such thing as nonviolence, and this is exhibited by the fact that on the cover of Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada doesn't have a painting of Krishna dancing with the gopis. He has a painting of him going into battle with Arjuna. So it's this, even though it's an indirect rasa, anger and killing, it's there. It's very much a part of God, and people have to realize that. Hanuman was the protagonist or the leader of anger. He set fire to Sri Lanka when Ravana was alive, and he used because he became angry. He served Krishna in that mode, and he was turned out to be a very great devotee, even though he was more devoted to Ram than to Krishna. So sometimes this anger or force is required. It's not very pleasant, but just like we have to have police forces and we have to protect they exist to protect the innocent. Police are generally thought of as inimical people, but they have to exist. Prisons have to exist. Police forces have to exist. And even Maharaj Pariksit, even though he was a saintly person, he condemned a person who was unnecessarily torturing a cow. And he drew his sword on that person. I don't know what the outcome eventually was, but he was doing it as a matter of protecting the innocent. So sometimes even saintly people have to exhibit the feeling of anger or dread or violence because they need to because the innocent people need to be protected. So we think that because our airplanes and our telephones, or cell phones or ordinary telephones and all of the medicines that we take are very wonderful things, but these things have existed since time immemorial. The airplanes in the Vaikuntha world and the spiritual world, they don't rumble, they won't make any noise, they're made out of flowers, they're not machines. And instead of we think it's so great to be able to speak with someone on the other side of the world in the Americas, but in previous times people could do this kind of thing. They could I think Sanjaya could see what was happening on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, even though he was far away from it. He could actually ascertain what was going on. And in terms of medicine, we think it's very wonderful that we have medicine, but in the spiritual world, that just like Hanuman, he wasn't existing in the spiritual world when he did this, but he went to the Himalayas and found herbs that were growing growing in the ground that were so powerful and so medicinal that they could revive even warriors that had been Lord Rama's warriors that had been rendered unconscious by the weapons of Ravana. So these kind of things are not new and not just products of the material world, but they have existed since time immemorial. Airplanes, medicine, communications, all these things. So I'm going to read the verse again. The sages, this is referring to the Kumaras, said, "O Supreme Personality of Godhead, we are unable to know what you intended for us to do. For even though you are the supreme ruler of all, you speak in our favor as if we had done something good for you." Actually, they did something that was very wrong in a sense. It shows, not in a sense it was wrong, and in a sense it was anger, because we don't see that saintly people exhibit the form of anger very often. But on occasion, when it's necessary, they do. So if there are any comments or questions regarding any of this, now's the time to ask. And think about it a little while.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Just on that note of saintly persons being angry, can you recall times where Srila Prabhupada became very angry in your dealings with him?
Well, one thing that stands out in my mind is there was a person, this was in England, in London. There was a person who had, it was kind of a menagerie of deities in her home. It was her temple room. And so she came to visit Prabhupada when Prabhupada was staying on Marylebone Road temporarily before he got before the temple was built and buried placed, and he was so angry with I was in a different room, but I could hear he was raising his voice, and he made several volleys of anger onto this person for being an impersonalist and worshiping the many deities. I don't know what the reason was exactly. But it was so intense that one of Prabhupada's servants who tried to go into the room came back out and told me that he couldn't go in there because Prabhupada was so angry. So he did exhibit this anger on occasion, and that's the occasion that stands out in my mind, that he was very angry upon this woman who was not only an impersonalist, but worshipped many gods, demigods, and had a literal menagerie in her home. And unfortunately, the devotees, we didn't know any better, but she was one of the people whose homes we visited on a regular basis because we chanted Hare Krishna. And even though she was a bit of an impersonalist and a worshiper of demigods, she liked Hare Krishna. But Prabhupada didn't spare her any mercy. He was angry, and that was manifest. That's just one incident. There are other incidents too, but I don't remember all of them. Yes?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for a nice class. My question is, I feel nowadays we don't even instruct other people something, because in these days people are very sensitive and they get offended so easy. So I was wondering if you can make a comment. Is there a way of, maybe not getting angry, but at least to be able to instruct someone without them getting, all... Maybe
we can discuss this after class, because it's a little confidential, and I'm a little bit reluctant to say everything on a microphone when a microphone sends things all over the world. But anyway, we can talk about it. Anything else that's not terribly controversial? Yes? Hard emotion to use for Krishna?
The anger is the most difficult emotion to use for Krishna.
Yeah, in a sense, I would have to agree with the anger being the most difficult, way to express love for Krishna?
Anger is the most difficult emotion.
Difficult emotion.
To use for Krishna.
To use for Krishna. It's very rare. It's a rasa, but it's an indirect rasa, and it's not used very often. But this whole idea of cursing the sages, the doorkeepers of Vaikuntha, is, in a sense, it was manifested out of anger. But the fighting that exists between a father and a son is mock anger. It's not real anger. Just like in a drama or a play, sometimes the person plays the part of a demon. He becomes very angry. But in real life, he or she is not angry, because it's a very difficult thing and spiritually, it's even more difficult to express love for Krishna through anger. Very, very difficult. I can't even give some examples of it. Although this is one of them. But there are many, many others. But still, they're in a minority. Even though there are many, they're in a minority. Probably only a few percentage points of the love of Krishna is manifest through anger. That's my take on it, anyway. Anything else?
In the present climate, or it's been going on for a long time, we see that those who are representative of God, who speak on behalf of God, take the liberty to express extreme anger towards other people who also speak on behalf of God, and they all have a different opinion about who should be supreme and who should be controlling the situation. And we see that the result of that is total annihilation.
Is what?
It's annihilation.
Annihilation.
They just destroy each other in the name of God, but we actually don't know that their actions are justified in representing God.
They're justified in a sense, but in another sense, the devotee never becomes angry upon another devotee. It's mentioned in this chapter that offending a devotee is the greatest of all offenses. So even though it does happen, it's not proper, it's not good. It's kind of like unity and diversity. We put aside all our differences, our reasons to argue or condemn other people. When there's a festival, we just put it all aside and get into the festive attitude of being a festival. So as was mentioned before, sometimes it's necessary to point out defects. But if one becomes angry in doing that, it's not a good thing. As a devotee, we try to maintain a friendly attitude towards everyone, even if they're sinful, at least in the beginning. But later on, it's possible to manifest something that's not exactly friendly.
I was referring mainly to other religions.
Pardon?
I was referring to other religions.
Prabhupada was very, we might say, liberal towards people of other religions. There was an incident when he was in somewhere near Melbourne. It was a St. Francis monastery, St. Francis of Assisi. And one of the brothers asked him, well, what's your attitude towards Jesus Christ? And Prabhupada said, well, what is his philosophy? And so they kind of gave an answer about how he was very loving and very tolerant. And many mentioned this brother mentioned many qualities of Lord Krishna, of Jesus Christ. And Prabhupada's comment after hearing him, and didn't answer immediately, was to say, that is God consciousness. So in a sense, and then he also said that the Bible is like an abridged or college or pocket dictionary, whereas the Vedas tend to be like the unexpurgated, unchanged dictionary, the full, complete dictionary of words. So in a sense, there's nothing exactly wrong that's said in the Bible, but it's not complete. So in that sense, he was very liberal. And in another sense, when he got into a lengthy discussion with someone of another religion, sometimes he manifested characteristics of disrespect or anger. And in one example, it's not exactly appropriate to, but when Lord Caitanya was having a discussion with the Chandkazi after he exhibited civil disobedience, 100,000 people or so were carrying torches at night, and they led a procession to the Qazi's house because the Qazi had objected to kirtan. And Prabhupada had Lord Chaitanya, not Prabhupada, Lord Chaitanya had a discussion with this man. Even though he was a meat eater, Prabhupada was friendly to him. But he said, what kind of, I don't know if I'm quoting this exactly, but he said, what kind of a religion is this when you can kill and eat animals like cows? So in the sense, he was condemning him. But in another sense, he was very friendly. And the whole discussion was very peaceful and very cordial. So sometimes there's an opportunity to depart from cordiality to being a little angry with people of other faiths. But it's not an ordinary thing that someone becomes angry or condemns another faith, whether it's Jewish, Mohammedan, or Christian, or whatever. The people who believe in God are not ordinary people. That's what a devotee is supposed to think, anyway. So, do you want to discuss what you were talking about? As long as you're not recording it.